After forming a surprise unity government this week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now has greater bandwidth to focus on pressing security matters. One issue that will occupy the Israeli government's attention in the coming weeks and months concerns how the state will militarily manage growing security concerns along its southern border with Egypt. An example of these military preparations could be seen earlier this month when the Israeli military called up 6 battalions of its reservists, with another 16 on hold. The call-up, which came in the form of an emergency request from the army to the government, makes it possible to reinforce enlisted infantry troops who have begun to deploy along the border in regular rotations, and allows them to pull back when needed for scheduled training maneuvers. At a glance, this is consistent with the Israelis' previously stated intention to fortify their southern border, particularly after an attack last August near the resort town of Eilat, in which an armed cell infiltrated the country from the Sinai Desert and killed 7 Israelis, 5 of them civilians. In the months since, the Israeli government has accelerated the construction of a fence along its 240-kilometer border with Egypt, and the army has implemented plans to establish a new brigade in the south, including infantry troops, a field intelligence unit, and aviation assets to monitor and respond to all threats. But the new protocol has not come without its costs. Stationing enlisted soldiers along the southern border effectively takes manpower away from the other traditional deployments these troops have filled in recent decades. While the army isn't necessarily stretched thin by the new arrangements, it has led the top brass to lean on reservists to help supplement the new deployments. While this is all indicative of the overall shift in Israeli security focus over the last year, it also sheds light on some of the internal maneuvering that has begun to take place as the Israelis, who had until now played coy as the Arab Spring unfolded on their doorstep, begin an overt change in their security doctrine. The first large maneuver can be found within the emergency call-up of reservists itself. The urgent terminology used in that formal request allowed the Army to bypass a 2008 reservist law, which stipulated that reservists could only be called for active duty once every 3 years, as opposed to annually, unless in case of an emergency. By framing the call-up in such terms, the Army avoided the law's legal obstacles. But the Army's urgent call-up also likely relates to an ongoing debate over the military's 2012 budget, which saw a cut of 1 billion shekels, or $267 million, and sparked a messy round of austerity measures that have already seen scaled-back training exercises and canceled Independence Day celebrations. The Army's tone surrounding the reservist call-up could also be a pointed message to the government, which reminds those responsible for next year's budget that unfolding security concerns should guarantee more funding for the military sector. Finally, the reserve call-up can be viewed as an IDF message to their counterparts in Egypt, which signals the Army's willingness to respond to any and all security threats emanating from the Egyptian side of the border. While the August attack could be dismissed as an anomaly that won't soon repeat itself, the Israelis have an incentive to present a show of strength as they see the already shaky political transition in Egypt leading to a rising security threat on their southern border and want Cairo to know they are taking the necessary precautions.